trying to control situations locally. I want us to talk about the E-Naira now. I know we saw the release and we saw what happened 2 to 3 days later. We saw general reactions. We saw people come up with different narratives on what they think the E-Naira is supposed to do. And we've seen the CBN's narrative, which truthfully is a strong one. Then we've also seen the commercial banks try to come in to further strengthen the initiative. So I would like you guys to, Philip, I would like you to, for now, as we get the conversation started, just share some data with us. Where are we currently on the E-Naira?
Okay, so on the E-Naira, since it was launched in October, so it's estimated that there are around 566,000 downloads. So that's spread between, merchant wallets and individual ones. So you have probably 478 individual, then 78,000 for the merchant downloads, which brings the total to around 566,000. But it's in the usage that there's probably been a challenge, because it's estimated that just around 17,000 transactions have taken place, and they are valued at around 62 million naira. Now, the reason why that is a concern is that some people might just even have done those transactions just to try out the app, and not necessarily because they are looking to use it for the long term. And if it doesn't, maybe some just use it out of curiosity. You just want to see, yes, this is the latest thing in town. You also want to see what is happening. But how many of those people have been converted? It looks like it might not be a lot, given the current circumstances. It is true that the central bank is trying to lure other fintechs and other, institutions into this. But one thing that one should be worried about is that why did CBN not probably get them involved earlier than this? Why did they have to wait till now to probably do what they are doing now? Because, for instance, many of the fintechs in Nigeria probably have some expertise in blockchain and all these other kind of technologies used for the digital currency. But the company that was hired is in Barbados. I think it's Beat Incorporation. Even though the reason given is that they've been able to support one in the, in Barbados or somewhere in, I think in the Caribbean. I'm not sure of what part of the country or of the world now. And that's why that contract was awarded to them. But, the government is, very hard on those who are into anything crypto related. And, it's the same technology that is powering the digital currency itself. Maybe some slight variations here and there, but it's the same technology. So as the CBN is also seeing now, I think the ratings initially was very bad. And in fact, it was taken down from some of the App Store at the initial phase. But I think they've been restored now. But it remains to be seen if it will be able to achieve most of the goals they've stated. Because one thing that is very important with the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, also highlighted recently, is that it might be a straight out competition with commercial banks. Because what is happening now is that the E-Naira will be resident technically with the CBN, and whatever funds are available in the E-Naira wallets will not be available to commercial banks, who normally should be those involved in, giving out loans and playing that role as an intermediary, even between the those who need financial resources and all that. So now the CBN is taking up that role. They've said they've put a limit on what each person can use in a day, but really, how will it affect in the long run if they decide to probably increase the limits on those things, and they also expect the banks to drive that project. I think many of them are driving it reluctantly because, of course, they have no choice. When your regulator is saying, you have to do this, then you probably have no choice but to drive it. But if you look at some of the goals, yes, some of them look like maybe the financial inclusion part looks like something good, but you look at it and see how is it going to be achieved? And then you see some other figures being thrown around, like it's going to aid diaspora remittance. In fact, it was stated that maybe by 2020, there will be around $29 billion increase in diaspora remittance. And I'm wondering how that is going to happen. Maybe Debo knows because they are the ones dealing with, but I really don't know how it's going to bring in $29 billion. I really don't know, but maybe Debo can help us.
Okay, so before I go to Debo, I just want us to do a bit of a recap back to the foundation of E-Naira. Why exactly, because you've talked about financial inclusion, why exactly was that initiative launched? What are these goals that it was set to achieve?
Okay, I think it was, maybe let me say it's launched in direct competition to those who have a love for cryptocurrency. Because, the first move by the central bank was to, ban cryptocurrencies in Nigeria, and then say, okay, they are going to launch a digital currency later in the year, which they've now done. So essentially it's because they know that it seems that the young population in Nigeria, they seem to like the digital currency space. But what do they like about it? And I think that's what the central bank has to define. Do they like it because it's a digital currency, or do they want it because it's an investment? So those are the things that the central bank probably needs to address a little bit more, because I think the financial inclusion goal is even a much more long-term goal. I am not so sure with the current mechanism in place, they can achieve that. Now the young population, those who trade in cryptocurrency know why they trade in it, but the E-Naira will yield no interest, and then it wouldn't give them the anonymity probably that they seek, even in trading in such currency. So I really don't know. I know it's in direct competition to cryptocurrency, but how far it can achieve that, I really don't seem to understand it.
Okay, thank you. Debo, you can come in now.
Yeah, so maybe I will pick it from looking at each of those objectives that Philip mentioned, because I listened to one of the directors from CBN as well, and some of those objectives came up. And I was trying to think about, okay, given how they have set it up, how is this objective going to be achieved or being achieved at present? If I start with the inclusion, for example, when they mention financial inclusion, I take that to mean they are trying to get more people into the banking system. However, the current setup requires that you have a bank account already, so which means they are dealing with people that are already using commercial banks. Apart from the fact that they are even dealing with people that are using commercial banks already, they are even dealing with a smaller pool of people that are using banks, because they are dealing with people that have internet every day. So if I try to look at that aspect of their objective, I would have thought maybe they could have gone with the current system where, yes, we have people that are using electronic banking already. Is there something the government can do to also improve the number of people that have internet? And then we stick with the same system of still using internet banking. Because like my trying to look into that, I also looked at the countries that are actually leading in moving towards cashless society. And Sweden, China, and UK were the top three, or are the top three. And actually none of them has launched their e-currency at a full scale. In fact, the UK has not launched at all. They are still researching. Sweden and China actually have a pilot. So then that tells me that it's not actually the e-currency that led them to where they are in their cashless society, in their move towards a cashless society. So maybe I'm already talking in terms of what I thought they should have done, but yes, some of the things I don't know how we are achieving that. That is in terms of inclusion. Of course, they talked about saving on printing money. I think that one, yes, is of course, if you use electronic money, then you are not printing physical money. So I think that is a clear objective in that regard. Again, if they had stayed with the current system and most of our transactions are done electronically, maybe, of course, they could still have achieved the objective of saving on money printing. They talked about reducing cost of transaction. And I think maybe, yes, because I don't know how much they could regulate, how much commercial banks are charging as COT. So I think by them bringing out their own system and being in charge of the e-money, then they would be able to set cost of transaction. And I think they said they are going to do it free for the first 90 days. Then afterwards, I don't know how much the cost will compare to the current cost of doing it through commercial banks. But yes, for the initial stage, yes, they are saving on that. Cost of transaction is lower. Diaspora remittance, again, if you are changing the method through which people remit money, but if there's no significant difference in terms of ease of doing it and the cost of doing it, I'm not sure if that changes the mindset of people. I think there's something the CBN is missing in terms of diaspora remittance. If I started from when they talk about the Naira for dollar policy, we've talked about it, that they don't seem to understand that giving somebody extra 5 Naira on a dollar does not change the decision to send money to Nigeria. And in the same way, you changing the method through which people need to say would send their money to Nigeria does not make them send more money. So again, I think they need to do a deeper dive in understanding why people send money before trying to include diaspora remittance as part of the objective of this policy they have in place.
Okay, thank you very much, Deba. I see Tolu already shared the screen. So Tolu, can you just talk to these use cases? I've seen a lot of people push back on it, but let's talk to the use cases and the way forward into the future.
Okay, yes, thank you very much for me. And Philip and Deba already did the heavy lifting, right? And that's the image as Deba was talking, he was literally going around these use cases. This document is from the central bank itself. It was extracted from the white paper for the E-Naira itself. So when the central bank is thinking about the E-Naira and the uses, these are the uses that they are thinking about. And Debo is very spot on, right? Around going through each one of these, one after the other. And if I go through it, facilitate diaspora remittances, reduce the costs and improve efficiency of cross-border transactions, right? Enable direct welfare disbursement to citizens, increase revenue and tax collection, reduce the cost of processing cash, and encourage financial inclusion and support a resilient payment ecosystem. So it's really everything that the current Naira does, right? But helping to do it in an easy fashion. And I think the ones that I want to really hammer on and to focus on is its help in enabling the disbursement of welfare directly to citizens, right? We spoke about this week, we saw this conversation around transport allowance if subsidy is removed, right? The E-Naira could be a useful tool for disbursing these 5,000 Naira, if theoretically it is approved, if it's a thing, eventually. This is a viable channel through which these social welfare type of thing can be distributed to citizens. right? The other thing is encourage financial inclusion. People who don't have access to bank accounts already, but they have a mobile phone. They can download this app, or I hear that there will be 4 phases of implementation, and at some point USSD options will come up in the use of E-Naira, so that even if you don't have access to internet or to data or to a smartphone, as it were, if you use USSD, the text message feature, you could be able to access the E-Naira. So overall, it's a lofty goal, right? And it's an interesting thing to have. But like Debo said, it is a lot of dependencies, and if this is what, so for instance, the competition with the bank, with the current banking system, who already offer virtual banking and transaction banking seamlessly. If I go to my GT Bank or any bank mobile app now, I could literally transfer money to anybody in seconds. So why should I layer on top of that the E-Naira, and that wallet? So I think these use cases have been discussed extensively, and I'll just leave it. Recognize that this is in phases. The first phase is what they've implemented. The other 3 phases, we'll just wait and see, if that appeals to people. Because the current phase 1, the pilot phase, I will join Philip in thinking that it's not been so successful.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Tolu. So pretty much into the future, let's take a look at how all of this plays out. But definitely, it's a lofty initiative that when we consider all the various dependencies, then we can make it work. So I want us to move to sort of the final part of our discussion today.